It's almost 2 in the morning, and you're still awake, running a sentence someone said to you back through your head. Not a new sentence, one from years ago. You've turned it over from every angle, and you're turning it over again, because some part of you is convinced that if you think about it hard enough, it will finally resolve. It won't. You already know it won't, and you keep going anyway. People call this overthinking, like it's a small habit you could drop if you just decided to. But you have decided to, more than once. What nobody tells you is that the harder you try to think your way out of the loop, the tighter the loop pulls. Here's the part that should bother you. The people who overthink the most tend to be the ones with the most capable minds. The same intelligence that lets you read a room in seconds is the intelligence that won't let you stop reading it, long after everyone has gone home. You don't think too much because something is broken in you. You think too much because the machine works too well, and nobody ever taught you where its off switch is. Around 25 centuries ago, in northern India, a teacher was asked why human beings suffer even when nothing is actually attacking them. His answer had almost nothing to do with events. He said the mind takes a single moment of contact, a glance or a word left hanging, and multiplies it. One raw impression becomes 100 thoughts, and then those thoughts turn around and take possession of the person who made them. He had a word for this exact process, and what should unsettle you is that he described the machine you were running at 2 in the morning long before anyone had invented the word anxiety, the profession of therapy, or a scan that could watch a brain think. So if the sharpest minds in history already mapped this, why does it still feel like the flaw is yours alone? Watch what actually happens inside you. Someone leaves your message on read. That is the contact. One event, neutral, finished in a second. Then your mind opens it. Maybe they're upset with you. Maybe you said something wrong last week. So you start rebuilding last week, and you find 2 or 3 moments that could have been the one. Now you aren't dealing with a message at all. You're standing inside a courtroom you built yourself, playing every role, prosecuting yourself with evidence only you can see. And you're good at it. That's the cruel part. Your mind hands you detail and counter-argument on demand. Someone who thinks in the shallows would have shrugged and moved on an hour ago. You can't shrug because shrugging feels like missing something, and missing something feels dangerous. So you stay. You call it being thorough, being careful, being honest with yourself. But underneath the labels you've started to suspect that your awareness isn't protecting you anymore. It's feeding on you, and this is what makes it so hard to stop. The loop feels productive while you're inside it. It feels like effort. It feels like you're getting somewhere. You're not. The teacher was the Buddha, and the word was papancha. It's Pali, and it usually gets translated as mental proliferation, the mind's habit of taking one clean perception and elaborating on it until the original thing disappears under the commentary. In a discourse now known as the Honeyball Sutta, one of his disciples breaks the sequence down almost mechanically. There is contact, then feeling, then perception, then thinking, and then papananka, the runaway stage where thought stops serving you and begins generating itself. Notice the direction of the blame. These early texts don't say the world is too much for you. They say the mind does something to the world. The suffering doesn't live in the message left on read. It lives in the machinery that swells that message into a 1,000-page case file. And they were specific about who suffers most. The tradition taught that papanka runs on a particular fuel, the sense of I, the self that has to be defended and explained and kept safe. The more self you carry into a moment, the more furiously the mind proliferates around it. That is why people who think deeply about themselves loop the hardest of all. The depth was never the problem. The self standing in the middle of the depth is. Modern neuroscience wandered into the same room from the opposite door. There's a network in the brain that switches on the moment you stop attending to the outside world and turn inward, the one that runs during self-focused thought, replaying the past and rehearsing the future. Researchers tracking thousands of people found that this inward drift fills close to half of our waking hours, and that the more a mind wanders, the worse the person tends to feel. A monk and a brain scanner, separated by 25 centuries, ended up pointing at the same thing. But if the self is the fuel, then the way out was never to think less. It's something stranger than that. Stop trying to win the argument in your head. You can't. It was never designed to be won. The loop doesn't close when you finally arrive at the correct thought. It closes when you stop feeding it the one thing it runs on, which is your attention circling back onto yourself. The instruction buried in the Buddhist texts is almost insultingly plain, and it is not clear your mind. Nobody clears their mind. The instruction is to watch the thought instead of becoming it, to catch the proliferation as it starts, and let it be something happening in front of you, rather than a place you move into and live. Picture a projector running in a dark room. For years you've been standing inside the beam, mistaking the images for real events, flinching at every scene it throws. Watching the thought is nothing more than taking one step to the side, out of the beam, where you can finally see there's a machine on a table throwing pictures at a wall. The pictures don't stop, you just stop living inside them. Let me be honest about what this does and doesn't fix, because the clean, marketable version of this idea is everywhere now, and it's a lie. Stepping out of the beam does not make you think less. I still catch my own mind assembling the courtroom. Not long ago, I lost most of a night to a single email I had already sent, reading intention into my own word choices like they were scripture. What's different now is small, and it's everything. At some point in the night, I noticed I was doing it, not stopped. Noticed. That gap, the one between the thinking and the noticing of it, is the entire practice. It's about half a second wide, but inside that half second you are no longer the prosecutor. You're the one watching the prosecutor work. And from there, you can ask the quiet question that ends most loops. Is this thought actually showing me something true, or is it just running? Most of the time, it's just running. You won't believe that at first. Your mind will insist that this loop is the important one, the real threat, the exception to the rule. It says exactly that, every single time. The deepest thinkers I know spent years learning not to trust that voice on reflex, and none of us has fully managed it. You just learn to hold it more loosely. That turns out to be enough. So tonight, when it's late and the loop starts turning again, and it will, try not to fight it. Fighting is only more fuel. See if you can take that one step sideways instead. Watch the machine run. Notice how badly it wants you to believe that this thought, this time, is different. It isn't. It's only louder. The oldest Buddhist verses open by saying that we are made of our thoughts, that we become what we think. People quote that as if it's an instruction to think nicer thoughts. Read it the other way. If you are what you think, then your freedom was never going to come from winning the thought. It comes from remembering that you were the one watching it.